Hey there, and welcome back to Kicking It with David Akers. I'm pumped to kick it today with my man from down under. Yeah, this guy kicked amazing in his life, and he did it in two different sports. Started off, this Aussie from Australia, obviously, played in Australian rules football, the AFL. They call it footy. He played for 15 years. He played in 257 AFL games. He scored 748 goals, putting him 14th on the all-scoring list. This big old bloke is truly that. He stands at 6'5", 265 pounds, and he can smash the ball. This baller was the oldest rookie in the NFL at 33 years of age. Sav Rocca is another teammate I've had in the past, and he made me a better person. Like most Aussies, Sav's personality was kind of the laid-back sort, but as a professional man, he worked his tail off to accomplish whatever he could at the highest level. And he would do this to improve on his work ethic on a day in and day out basis. Sav did his best to be there for his teammates on and off the field. That is probably one of the reasons why Sav returned to Australia and to work as a coach in the AFL. He currently is with the Carlton Football Club. Well, that was prior to COVID, and everything's been closed down since then. But Sav is currently living down under in Melbourne, Australia, with his family, which consists of Rose, Matthew, we call him Matty, Lucas, and Marcus. And as most Americans think that they are having their shrimp on the bobby and they're drinking Foster's beer, eating at the Outback, playing their didgeridoo, and maybe throwing some sort of boomerang around or something like that. But the reality is that is none of that is taking place. But I am so excited to kick it with Sav Rocca. So, hey, Sav, great to have you on with Kicking It with David Akers, and you're kicking it down under style. So thanks for being on. It's a Saturday here for us. It's a Sunday morning for you guys. So I really appreciate your time, and man, miss seeing you, brother. You look great.
It's been a while. It's been a while. Good to be on, Dave. Thanks for having me on.
So you're down in Melbourne, right?
Yes.
And you're down there with Rose, Matthew, or Maddie, you call them, Lucas and Marcus, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
New additions that we're missing, like
no new additions. Our last one, Marcus, who we had in America was our last. So he's tipped us the scales. We were going to go for 4, but he said, no, that's enough.
I knew you didn't have any other kids. I meant, like, did you have any animals or anything that you got to get?
No animals. We actually got a stray cat who lobbed up on our door probably about a year ago on the back door, and she looked really skinny, so we called her Mel for malnutrition. So she's made herself comfortable here, and the kids love her.
So, listen, as we're kind of taking all the people that we've been talking to, we kind of go back to their childhood, kind of the growing up, and this is a time for a little storytelling. Who you are, where you come from. Obviously, you don't sound like you're from Tennessee in that accent, so you're born and raised over there in Australia, but was it in Melbourne, and what was kind of your childhood life like in sports and all that?
Yeah, see, I grew up in the northern suburbs of Melbourne. Starting athletics or track, as you guys would call it, from a young age. I was 7. We had a weekend competition every week, which I would go to. My mum would take me every Saturday morning early and start competing. And I started throwing the shot put and discus as a early age.
So you weren't running 100?
No, I mean we had to do all the events. So the 100 was there, the walk was there, high jump and all that sort of stuff was there. But I excelled at the shot put and discus. So growing up, that was my aim, was to compete in the Olympics. And as I got to like 11 and 12, I exceeded the coaches that we had there, and I had to get myself my own coach. So he was training me up to go to the Olympics. I won the Australian title, under 19 title.
So how old were you when you won that title?
I was 16 when I won the under 19s Australian title, which was a great achievement for me. So I wanted to go from that point on. My aspirations were to go and compete in the Olympics. Probably the 2006, 2010 Olympics was the aim.
It was mainly in discus for you? That was where you were really excelling?
Yeah.
See, I never knew this, Sav.
Well, I might have told you. You just might have forgotten. I don't know. I forget a lot too.
Maybe so. So during you're doing the discus and you're trying to go to the Olympics, which to me seems odd that you're at this high of a level in another sport. Were you still playing, Australian rules football at the time, or what you all call footy?
Well, yeah, I was. It was 16 when I started, playing a little bit of football.
So none before that.
Just like school football, like 3 or 4 games a year. It was
okay.
It was not much. School football is like you lose. It's like a round robin where you play. If you lose, you're sort of out and you can't win anymore, and you can't play anymore. So we didn't play that many games throughout. But then when I was 16, I had a friend of mine who was playing local football on a weekend league, and their ruckman, big guy, got hurt. He asked me, could I play and fill in for a few weeks till the end of the season? It was only 4 or 5 games. And I had a chat to my mum and dad, and they strictly forbid it. My parents are, from a European background. They migrated from Italy. They didn't want to see their kid getting hurt playing football. So they were happy with me doing the discus. But they didn't want to see me playing football and getting hurt. So it was a straight out no from them initially. Another week goes by, another 2 weeks goes by. My friend comes, the team's really struggling. We need a big man to contest, the high ball and all that sort of stuff coming down. Can you play? My dad really didn't want me to play. I ended up going down and playing the last 4 or 5 weeks of that season, and then started the following season as well.
So is this at a club level?
Just at a club, local level.
So for the Americans, would this be considered like travel soccer?
Yeah, it would be similar to that, I'd say. But when you say travel was the best of the area, wasn't it? Well, this is just kids that live in that area.
Okay.
That not necessarily the best from the area, but they just wanted to play in a local team.
So you're playing this local club, but you're also at this high level of discus throwing, all at the age of 16.
Yeah.
So at this point, you're now starting to play this club. Your parents probably, all right, like, what are you thinking, Sav? Like, you're a big old bloke, right? You're 6'5", and when we were together, you were like 265 and of blue twisted steel, right? But how do you go from saying, okay, I'm going to be a discus thrower and literally put yourself at risk, playing footy? I don't even understand why you would put yourself at that level. And I know how, in the intro that I did for you, I kind of talk about how I've seen you immerse yourself into a sport and really tried to, get really good at it. You have incredible athletic ability, but it just seems weird that you would take such a shift in one direction when you had so much potential over this side.
Yeah, I think the main part of it was I'd been doing the shot put and discus for 10 years, and it was getting to that, not really the point where I didn't want to do it anymore, because I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the focus that I had to put into myself with no other distractions and no other thoughts about other than improving myself. When the football came along, it was like I'm going training and there's 20 other guys that I'm talking to and I'm having fun with and, really enjoy being around. And that really attracted me to the sport, where I could be with other people and really enjoy their company. So initially it was just to be with my mates, I suppose, and didn't really look into it as being a serious aspect until that following year when I played my second year at that junior level. The guy, my best mate that got me down there playing, he was playing at a third tier level underneath the AFL over here.
And for you Americans, the AFL is considered like our NFL, just so you know, as far as football. Go ahead.
So then we have our AFL, then we'll have our reserves, which when our AFL players get hurt or don't perform, they can call up for the following week a next player. And then underneath that was the under-19s. So he was involved in the under-19s, and suggested to one of the recruiters that they'd come down and just have a look at, me performing. And I was at 16, I'd stopped growing. I was 6'4", 6'5" at 16. I was, how do I convert it? I was 240, 240 pounds at 16. So I was big. I could jump, I could outmark, I could outkick, I could kick the ball a long way already at that stage. So I'd already done my full growing. I was literally a man, a kid in a man's body at that point, which really the recruiters, when they came down, really enjoyed seeing that I was above, other kids in the area.
So you're getting now looked at from some of the pro guys. Well, what happened to the discus?
Well, I kept doing that, and I kept trying to juggle both trainings. The discus was, on a Tuesday, Thursday night training, and then I'd throw on compete on a Saturday, whereas my football was mainly competing on the Sunday, and I'd juggle the trainings during the week. And then, but once it got to, at the end of the under-19s, that following year, I had to make a decision whether I would continue on with my shot put and discus, or that the AFL and their reserves wanted to recruit me to, take that next step and go up a level. So it was a difficult time for me in that time, because I thought I really didn't know what to do. I really aspired to go to the Olympics, but I really wanted to keep playing footy because I was good at it.
Right,
and I probably went through, a week of decision making and couldn't really come to terms with, what I would do. Or almost could have had a bit of a nervous breakdown because I just was unsure of what I was going to do.
It's interesting to talk to guys like yourself and other people we've had on here and hear similar kind of situations and paths that they choose to navigate to go down. And it changes the outcome of their life, for that matter. I can remember making a decision to give up soccer and a possibility of a collegiate scholarship to say, hey, I should put more time and energy into this kicking. And a lot of it was just because it was new. And I don't want to say I was burnt out on the soccer, because I love the game, still love the game, but kind of feel like there was something different. It was new, it was fresh, and you were excelling at it at a quick pace. But when you go back to, say, as a kid, just in kind of grade school type stuff, you were developing your leg in the way you all perform and kick the ball. And I want to get into a little bit of nuances for especially the Americans to understand a little bit about what you do. Now, in the intro, we got plenty of shots of you kicking the ball as an AFL player and dismantling a few guys as well, which was great to see. But how do you think, if you're just doing it for fun and you're really doing more of the distance stuff, how do you think you really develop that sort of power and leg speed, if to really get to where you were?
Yeah, well, our lunchtimes were filled with football. We just go out.
All the kids would do it, just no matter what.
Yeah, well, we'd have like a kick to kick where there'd be 25 guys at one end and 25 guys at the other end, and we'd be 50 meters apart, 50 yards, 60 yards apart, and we'd kick the ball up high to one end, and everyone would literally contest for this one ball. So we'd have, guys flying everywhere, and we'd come in with a broken sweat and all our tops. We were so smelly after lunch. No girls would sit next to us. It was ridiculous. But we do that day in, day out when it was football season, because we'd be so excited that we'd be watching football on TV, and then come our lunch times, we'd be out there kicking. So I'd be out there trying to kick as far as I could, as high as I could, down to the other mob. And all the other kids, they'd be loving it because they could only kick 30 yards, but then Sav would come and kick it, 50, 60, 70 sort of. So they would love watching it. And we did that for years, day in, day out. That's our lunch times at school, how it was filled. So we'd get, 30, 40 kicks in a day,
That's great. So as we go into, you made this decision. We know how you've developed your leg just on a day-to-day basis, not knowing that would turn into a career for you. At what point did you make the decision and get the offer to go up to the AFL?
So I played. I got recruited at 91. I was playing the under-19s at Collingwood, the Magpies, which is that jumper that you got there in the background.
Yes, and some great old mate gave me this.
Yeah, that was me,
familiar, right?
Back in the day.
I
don't think that it fit anymore.
Yeah.
You know Pat McAfee, right?
Yeah.
He started during COVID early on. He started watching your all's AFL and was like, oh my gosh, what is this here? And I think it was the Magpies, that they sent him over a jersey, I believe, and he went out with the short shorts on and was trying to hit the ball to see what he could do. So you'd be great to go on to the Pat McAfee show and give him a pointer or two.
Sure.
I saw that episode when he got that. He's got some talent. Obviously he's got a strong leg, but he can do anything. He's got that type of – yeah, he's a freak. He does it all. So,
So you signed with them?
Yeah, so I signed with them at the end, under-19s, and then they said, when I made the decision to come through, I played about 14 games in the reserves, which top up the AFL. Started doing really well. They needed a little bit more height in the forward line in the AFL, so I got a call up, went up there, and then I played, with a couple of times when I had to go back down into the reserves because I wasn't performing, but generally stayed up there for the next 15 years.
15 years.
Yeah. So I had 9 years with the Magpies, and then I had 6 years with the North Melbourne Kangaroos.
Right. But 15 years in a profession that you really didn't have any initial desire. You were thinking Olympics over here, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Quite talented. So can you, in kind of a brief summary, give us the layman's terms of AFL 101, if you will, size of the field, because it looks enormous on TV. Kind of the different positions, what you were, because you were forward, you kicked a lot of the goals. Matter of fact, you were 14th on the all scoring charts for the AFL, which is fantastic. But kind of through that, do you think you can kind of give us the nuts and bolts of what we were watching over there? Because a lot of people think, hey, it's rugby.
Yeah, so we play on a field shaped like an egg. It's an oval, and it's probably about 150 to 160 yards wide to maybe 220, 230, 240, 250, because they're not all the same, our fields over here. They vary.
Really? So it's not a standard.
It's not a standard. So the only standard thing that we have is a 55-yard square in the middle, which only 4 players can contest in at the centre bounce. Once that centre bounce is over, anyone can run anywhere.
Okay.
So, and at the ends of the field, we have a 50-metre arc, which is 55 yards. It's an arc that comes around, both ends. In between the square and the 50-metre arcs can be different. So it's not always the same distance. Sometimes, in Western Australia, they have a big field there. It could be 10 to 15 yards between there. But, in some of the fields in Victoria, there might only be 2 or 3 yards between them. So,
Gotcha.
there could be a 20, 30-yard difference between them. But, the field is quite large and players can run anywhere. Our guys now, since they didn't have GPSs on when I was playing, but now they have them on. Our guys are running, at the most I saw last year when I was there, half marathons. They're doing 18 kilometres.
That's ridiculous.
Average for the whole team is probably about 13 to 14 kilometres. And they're hitting, high speeds, high reps of high speed running. So what the objective is, the ball is bounced in the middle. Guys contest, and the objective for my 18 players on my team is to get it through the big goal sticks. So we have 4 goal sticks. Like NFL, we have the main one in the middle, which is a goal. But if we kick it through the 2 sides, it's 1 point.
Right.
Now, if you kick a goal, it goes back to the middle and you start again. If you kick a point, that team has to transfer it from their defense to their goals.
Gotcha. And then during that time, your referee, is they call a ref or an umpire? What are they called?
Umpire.
An umpire comes out and he's like, he gives you one of those numbers.
With the hat. You used to have the white coat on and you go like that. And that was a goal. And if you only got the one finger, it was a point.
Yeah. So he would come out, and I remember being a kid watching this stuff on ESPN, and like, oh my gosh, these guys kill each other. It was great. I mean, I loved watching it and but the scoring, when they scored a goal, that was the best thing. All dressed up in their white, and there it is,
I can't forget that when I got to the States and the players would come up, did you play that game where the ref comes up and sticks his 2 fingers out? And that's all they could remember from the game. Yeah. It was hilarious.
So how long would the game last?
It was back in the day, it was like 25 minutes with time on. So it'd go for anywhere between, back then, 28, and it still does. It's roughly between 28 and 33 minutes a quarter.
Why is there a shift in the pros from actual time frame? There's not like, the NFL, you got 15-minute quarters.
Yeah. Well, for us, it was like the downtime that, if a ball went out of bounds,
oh, I got you.
They'd add the time on, so you couldn't waste time doing all that sort of stuff. So injury, if there was injury, the quarter would go longer. So it's not necessarily playing time would go longer. It was just the time of the quarter would go longer.
Kind of like soccer?
Yeah, a little bit like that.
Time added on? Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of fascinating with me, kind of hearing the amount. So for the American people, you're saying it varies, but our American football field to end zone is 100 yards. Then you have 10 yards in each. So the actual field length in the NFL is 120 yards long, and it's 53 yards wide. So the amount, it's like 3 football fields wide, actually further. That's incredible. So the amount of people, the spectators, they've got, I mean, the stadiums have to be so broad. How many people would go at a game like on a large match?
So on a large match, the largest I played in was 95,000. And that was when I was with Collingwood, the Magpies. So they would generally average 50,000 a game, roughly.
Mm-hmm.
But,
we
get 22 games.
Okay.
22 games per season. But we'd get anywhere between, if it were like 2 lesser teams, you might only get 25,000. But if it was 2 good teams and an important match, you'd get, 95,000 there regularly.
Do you feel that in Australia that AFL or the football there is equivalent to American NFL as far as the ranking of, here NFL is king, right? Over basketball, over baseball and hockey, NASCAR, all that. But over there you have rugby as well. But do you have any cricket as well?
We have cricket. We have a lot of cricket in the summertime.
So what about who? So AFL the king?
AFL is definitely way and above everything else. You would probably get cricket being next, and then rugby, tying it. And basketball's real low for us. Mm-hmm. Basketball's not very big at all. So it's out there, but it's not as big as the AFL. So
you being the top guy in your area, right? Like you were 14th tied, as we said, for the points. I mean, you got to be a big man on campus. You walk down the streets of Melbourne, like there goes Sav Rocca right there, right?
It was a bit like that,
Any good commercials you were part of?
We did a couple of things on TV, not commercials, no Vegemite, none of that sort of stuff. It wasn't really a lot of stuff like that back when I finished playing. It was 15 years ago, AFL now. So my prime was probably 95, 96, 97, those sort of years. So it was a long time ago before it really started to get big. I mean, it's pretty big now. But it was a bit like, if Rose and I went out for dinner, you'd always get, stopped and autographs and so, or stopped in the supermarkets. It was always, like that.
People want autographs or people want pictures over there?
A bit of everything. Well, back in the day, there wasn't the cameras on your phone.
Right.
So we really didn't have the pictures. It was mainly, unless it was a day where we'd be doing an autograph signing, out in the fields for all the fans, and they would come with their cameras. There'd be pictures, but it was mainly autographs on cards and stuff like that.
The transition to you, what made you think, hey, I'm getting a little bit older here. I've played into my 15th season. At what point did you say, hey, I'd like to go to America and try to play as a punter over there? Was it anything with any of the Aussies that had done before, like a Darren Bennett or a Ben Graham? How did that kind of come about to say, hey, I'm going to go give this a shot?
Well, in 2000, when I was released from the Magpies in 2000, I wasn't sure if I was going to get picked up again. So I came for a trip, and I had someone who knew someone in Buffalo. Mm-hmm. Buffalo? Green Bay. Might have been Green Bay. It was one of the teams over there. Okay. And we had a bit of a workout, which didn't go quite so well.
Really? What happened?
Yeah. I went over there. I'd never kicked American football. I'd had maybe 2 or 3 kicks over here, sessions, and I tried to come over and get a workout. And I only got a workout because there was a scout who was on holiday in LA when I was there. And that's the only reason why I got that workout, because he was there. He was a bit pissed that I took him away from his holiday.
So you're saying you really had only kicked an American football 2 or 3 times, And then got an actual tryout.
Yeah. And it was only because someone knew someone at the team.
That's crazy. Okay, so tell me what happened during this workout?
So I start warming up. The scout comes. He going, "Are you ready?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm ready." He said, "You've got about." He did the whole measurement thing of height, weight, all that sort of stuff, and then we went out and kicked. And I had probably 10 kicks. My first one was an absolute bomb where it went 65, 70 yards, and he was pretty impressed. But then after that, I shanked like the next 9. It was like you could see the look on his face, just going, "Oh, what have we got here?" So at the end of it, he came up to me. He goes, "Look, you've got some amazing leg strength, but your consistency is just not there," which to me was good in a way because it just told me I wasn't ready and I needed to work more on that if I wanted to go that way. And at the end of the day, I came home from that trip and ended up playing another 6 years in the AFL because I got picked up by another team, which was great for me. It's football was what I loved doing at that point in time, and it was good for me to keep going with that. I wasn't finished in my head, so for me to actually take a risk on going to the NFL then probably wouldn't have been a smart one because I hadn't put the time and effort in to kick the NFL ball, and I still had passion to play more football over here.
So at that point, you've got your 15 years in, right? When did you start over there saying, I'm going to start kicking some of these American footballs more and not hit the normal end over end flip flop type of Aussie kicks that we call it now, and hit what you called more of torps, the spiral conventional punt type balls? When did that kind of start working for you?
So halfway through the year of my last year here, I announced that I was going to retire at the end of the season.
Okay.
And one of the questions from the reporters was because they'd known that I'd came over to the States and had that workout. They said, Are you going to look at playing NFL? And I said it'd probably be something that I might look at towards the end. I wasn't quite too sure. I said I wasn't sure at that point in time. There's a NFL like weekend league here that play for that they actually pay to play, to register. They got to pay for all the uniform. They got to pay for their helmets. They got to do the whole lot to play here.
They call that semi-pro in America, but it's not semi. You're paying to play. There's nothing pro about it.
Yeah, there is nothing about it. So one of the teams reached out and said that if I wanted to start training and kicking, that I could possibly go down there and do that. So I did. I went down there 1 day a week, 2 days a week, and just started kicking while I was still playing NFL. Now, I wasn't playing any games. I was just practicing.
Right.
Which for me was great because I could get a lot of reps in. There weren't any punters there. I had a quarterback who had played in NFL Europe.
Really?
And
what year did he play over there?
He would have played early 90s, I'd say.
Okay, so this is an older guy back then. Okay.
Yeah. So he was still playing at the team, which I decided to go and have a couple of punts at. And he'd try and help me out as quick as I could. He figured out time, handle, hang time, all that sort of stuff. So we were just trying to, get the gist of it. And the more reps that I got doing that really helped. They had a long snapper there, which was great. And he was slinging them back, a little bit inconsistent, but, I could catch the ball wherever he put it and we just, get on with our work. And he had a contact for me in Buffalo and he knew someone in Buffalo. So when I retired on a Sunday. And on that Tuesday after I retired, I was on a flight to Buffalo for a workout on the Thursday or the Friday. It was still unsure. They were going to see, if I got over there, I was tired or anything. But they were really, at the time, I think they were excited to have me go. And Brian, I knew that I was never going to get a gig with Brian Moorman being there. So he was punting lights out. But, I was just happy to get the experience.
Sure.
Get some, footage and hopefully for them to send me to NFL Europe, which is what I thought I'd go down.
So
after that,
how did you go from there?
after that workout, they said they'd send me to NFL Europe, which was great. So I ended up coming back home to Australia, thinking that was going to be, my pathway. A couple of weeks later, I thought I was supposed to have gotten word from them what was happening.
Okay.
And I didn't. So I tried to call them on numerous occasions with no return calls. Anyway, I ended up getting onto them, and they said that wasn't going to go ahead anymore. You'd have to find another solution. So I decided to come back to the States and see if I can get a few more workouts. And at the time, a buddy of mine that I grew up with lived in New York. He's a lawyer in New York, which was great. He had an apartment in New York. So we went and stayed with him for, I think it was 4 weeks. And we sent, in that 4 weeks, I was training at a Manhattan Oval along the river there, just bombing balls at, there was light towers and there was people. And I was trying to dodge everything. It was a bit of mayhem, but it was good. I was still able to get my workout in. In the meantime, I've formulated an email to try and actually I spoke to an agent over there who I tried to get me to take me on under his wing and get me some workouts. He said he couldn't do that because I was untried, untested, no footage. Sure. But he gave me an email for every team to contact and send any footage that I had of me practicing like that. I did that, sent it to all the teams, bar the teams that had Aussie punters. And all I got back was 2 replies saying that they weren't interested. Okay. And no one else replied back to me. So it was, at the end of the 4 weeks, I thought, well, I've been over here for 4 weeks. I've given it a go, and nothing's going to come of it. Meanwhile, I've got my family. We're living in a 1-bedroom apartment, and it was pretty tight, and it was crazy. With small kids who want to just run around, it was crazy. So we come to the conclusion that okay, it's not going to work out. We're going to head home. Mm-hmm. A buddy of mine who we were living with said, "Why don't you stay for a couple more weeks and just hopefully something comes about." So we ended up postponing our flight for another 2 weeks. We stay there. And in that 2 weeks, we're trying to think of what else we can do. So I give Ben Graham a call, who's another Aussie. He was punting for the Jets at the time. We meet up at a restaurant in New York. Great fella. Gave me the details for his agent. Just said, just give my agent a call and see if she can help. Her name was Kristen Kaliga. So she did. I spoke to her, and literally 2 days before I was supposed to fly home again, she said, if you can get your ass down to Philly tomorrow, which was the day before that we were flying, they'd have a look at you. So I literally got off the phone, rented a car, had the car for the next morning. We woke up at like 7 a.m, and we were down there, straight away, and parked the car, had the workout, and literally drove straight back to New York that afternoon. Had the workout with Rose and the kids in the car park, watching balls sail over the hedges. They could see the balls flying at the end of the day. They called me into the boardroom and said, do you have any family? And I said, yeah, they're actually in the car. They said, go get them. So I brought the wife and the kids in, Rose and the kids.
Who's having you in with this during this time?
Was it
Howie?
It might have been Howie.
Okay. Howie Roseman, the general manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
Called me in and said, we'd like to sign you to a futures contract. So it was, we were over the moon. And we knew that nothing was still certain at that point in time, but, just having the opportunity to learn more and be involved in, one of the great organizations was amazing.
So I remember meeting you and kind of hearing all of this. Now, you had an incumbent guy, Dirk Johnson, who had done a pretty good job, previously punting for the team and gotten an extension. But I remember your first mini camp, your first 20 punts were out of 20 punts, you had 17 that were over 5-second hang time. And for people that don't know punting, I mean, just to get your first 5 second is a big deal. You had 17 on your first charted day. I was blown away by that. Obviously, I was a little bit unnerved because you've never played, you've never held, so my career is going to be left in your hands as well. And one thing I do recall is how hard you worked during that offseason learning to hold the ball, because I know I'm not necessarily the easiest guy to hold for because I'm very particular.
I expect you. What's that?
Are you sure you're particular? But which is why I think I learnt it, because you were so particular and wanted that ball perfect every time. Really instilled in me that this is something that for me to get this job, I had to work and get this right. I knew how important it was. So if you remember, mini camp was June. It's usually in June.
Yep.
I rocked up on the 17th of March. Well, I think it was March or April. I can't remember, but it was the first day.
March, yeah.
Yeah, the first day that guys could officially come to work out. I rocked up. And I said, I'm ready for training. And they said, what are you doing here? They just thought that I was going to rock up for camp and be another leg sort of thing. So I rock up 2-3 months saying, no, I'm ready to work out. Now, obviously, I couldn't get workout with coaches, but I recall that Doran Boss was there. And we also had a couple other long snappers coming. Jeremy Kane, I think, came in. He ended up playing a few years. But we were just getting reps in, and you were there, and I was able to hold a lot of balls for you, and it was a learning curve for me, but it was something that I knew that I needed to get down.
There are certain times where people they don't want to be good, and some people do, and they're going to put whatever it takes to be good at it. And a lot of people don't understand that wind and kind of trajectory that we want to deal with the ball. A lot of it is how you lean it forward, side to bite through the wind. Teaching somebody who doesn't know anything about that was not going to be an easy thing. So I think you did a great job on that, and we were together for 4 years and really had a lot of success. But ultimately, I think you as a punter, and I think you would, in saying this, I think you'd be even better now because you have so many specialty kicks that you could do with the end over end that ultimately today you see more and more punters using that for normal punts. And you could have adjusted and done way more of that, not as much on the torps or the conventional, and be able to place them at certain times. Maybe a little bit more in the crappy weather games that ultimately you still had great success, but even more people have bought into it, even to the point where my son's playing ball now. And I remember, I could do it, but I couldn't do it like you could do it, right? And I was a kicker, but you could adjust how you wanted that ball manipulated very easily. And to me, I think that was kind of the start of why you had such success. You just said, I want to be good at what I do here.
And I see guys now punting different balls at times now. And I think that I can do all of that. And I'm thinking to myself, if I was there now, I'd be able to, I can turn that ball rather than just going end over end, spinning it backwards. I can spin it sideways. I can make it curl to the right. I can make it curl to the left, or hit a knuckleball, or that sort of stuff. So it would have been interesting to see how we'd go, or I would have gone in today's day. But then again, you got to have the right coach for that. If you don't have the right coach who puts that faith in you to be able to do that sort of stuff, then they don't want to see it either.
Oh, you're right on that, which it kind of brings to kind of another thought. What do you think was the biggest transition between the AFL and the NFL for you? Like, what was the hardest thing for you to overcome?
I think the fact that I got over there and I knew I could kick the ball long and high. The consistency I had to get down initially. But then once we started getting into meetings, and meetings isn't probably a really big thing for a punter, but I wanted to learn as much as I could. Sitting in the first week of meetings was like landing in Japan and going to class with them talking Japanese.
Exactly.
That's what it was like. It was just blew my mind that, guards are running this and tackles, and I'm thinking, what's a guard? What's a tackle? What's a slot? And I'm thinking, I don't know what the hell is going on here, and I didn't know how long it would take me to learn it, and that was my biggest fear going forward. If I had to know all of that, which didn't need to be known, a lot of it, I just needed to know that I need to catch that ball and kick it in, 1.28, 1.26 seconds. So. And get the consistency with it.
What about, though, learning to become a directional guy? Was that difficult? Getting the hand to foot was one thing, but how about doing direction, height? And I know one thing we discussed, that you would kick it with everything you had a lot, and then you kind of learned that like you could taper that down. You wouldn't hit this big a ball, but you were definitely going to be more consistent with that.
Yeah. When we're talking direction, initially was hard because I was trying to do everything with the spiral. Mm-hmm. Going right or left with the spiral, for us as Australians, is probably a little bit difficult because we just want to kick it straight. With the spiral is far and long when we kick it over here. Directional with the end over end was not a problem because I could, land it within a 5-yard radius, wherever I wanted it, going in and dropping it inside the 20. So that wasn't a problem. It was just directional with the spiral, which, probably hindered me a little bit at the start. It was a little bit hard to grasp, but once we got it down pat, later on in my career, it was okay.
Yeah, you were, again, very, very good at it. So you played 4 years there with the Eagles, and then you went 3 years to play with the Redskins, and we were this close to be playing 7 years together. I chose to go out west, but I was offered to go to the Redskins with you. And, times I kicked myself for not spending another 3 years with my mate. But we have kind of some things we like. You're a Mustang fan. I'm a Mustang fan. Do you still have that?
I still got my Shelby. I still got it, and I love it.
So I did see something where you did a celebrity race. And so is driving become one of your hobbies over there?
I wish it could. I'd love to be a racing car driver. It's so expensive to get over here, and to get into something like that. You've pretty much got to pay for your own car and your own way, as a start out guy. But, I'd love to get
Sav Rocca.
it. Yeah. Yeah, I wish. But, can you drive? You got to put your life on the line when it comes to, doing stuff like that. I had that opportunity to do that celebrity race, which I won both races, but I wasn't actually supposed to be in it. A buddy of mine was in it, and he wasn't able to get time off work. So he said, I got Sav who can do it. And I said, yes, put me in. And they were hybrids. It was the first ever full hybrid race in the world, I think. They were Lexus CT200 hybrids. And it was funny because we in the cars thought that we were flying around that track, but when you look at it on footage, it looks like you could almost run faster than what those cars are going.
Any other hobbies you picked up since playing days?
I enjoy my fishing. I get out and fish a bit. I go for some snapper. I love catching calamari and eating calamari or squid. So I love my whiting as well. So we get out there and catch those, bring a feed home to the family, which is good.
How far are you from saltwater? Like where you can go out and do that?
The closest saltwater is probably half an hour away.
Oh,
yeah, but the boat is moored at the marina. It's probably an hour. So, I'll wake up in the morning, shoot down there, and I'll get a day's fishing in and come home. I've also got property up north, 2-hour drive, which I get out to a bit. It's more of, I call it my farm. I don't farm anything, but I get up there and and the kids love it. We get on motorbikes and
Yeah, they do a little motocross, don't they?
Yeah, Matty jumps on the bike, and Lucas is starting to come through, and we get to the track every now and then, and they really enjoy it.
So I want to bring up a little bit of, for guys that I've coached in the high school collegiate side. There's a little bit of controversy on the American side versus the Aussie. So you all have an incredible opportunity to come over. You did this. Ben Graham did it. Obviously Darren Bennett. But you played professionally and then jumped right into professional sports. And there's a little bit of people talking about high school players who are trying to compete sometimes with some older players from Australia, that they've got an incredible program over there developing guys to come over and play American football. But they're not going professionally, which their age would kind of make them think they were, because some are collegiate ages, but some are a little bit older, 23 to 26 kind of years of age. And how people get onto teams and scholarships to get their university paid for, usually you're about the same age competing. Do you know much about the differences between what kind of the American kids and their high school growth and how they go to kind of what's kind of taking place on the Australian side?
Well, the guys that come from Australia are generally the guys that can kick the ball far, but they can't make it in the AFL here in Australia. So they will try and fall back and make it to the NFL. And at the same time,
why can't they make it?
Can't they make it in the AFL if they've got a strong leg? I mean, what is there accuracy that far off on being a goal kicker?
Well,
or forward?
You got to be able to get the ball. You got to be able to think your way through scenarios like we don't get you get the ball kicked to us, but we have a direct opponent. Like I was a forward and there'd be a defender on my shoulder the whole time. So we don't face off like in the American football where you can have space or have a breakaway. So our ball is floating around. It's a continuous sport. Now you got to be switched on. There's no routes to run. There's no, you got to be here or you got to be there. It's all about thinking your way through. It's like soccer. It's thinking your way through scenarios. The ball's coming here. Where am I going? Where's my opponent? How do I get rid of him to get the ball? And if you can't do that, you're not going to get it much. So there are guys that can kick the ball a long way, but they're actually not going to excel in playing AFL. They can play at a lower level and maybe get by, but they're thinking, I'm going to give my leg a shot at going overseas. And they're going to get a college education as well. And that normally will take 2, 3, 4 years over here for them to figure out that they can't make the AFL. So they're going to be 23, 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. And because they haven't played at a professional level here, which is what I did, I couldn't go back to play college over there because I've already played professional football.
Right.
So because those guys haven't played professional, they're going back to college and playing. And looking at it, it's probably a little bit unfair on, guys like Luke who are 17, 18, 19 years old, and they're trying to compete against guys that are men, 23, 25 years old. So it is a little bit unfair for the guys that are punting in as Americans.
It is. It's an interesting kind of dynamic. I would be curious to see if other positions, if what would happen if, say, it was a quarterback but some incredible people I've been able to meet that have come over and have done a great job. And I would much rather see coaches utilize an Aussie and what we would call like an Aussie kick. Even if you're rolling out at the collegiate level, doing that stealing hang time as the ball is held by the punter, and obviously in the college ranks, those punt coverage guys can get down the field before the ball's punted. As you played in the NFL, you only have 2 gunners that can release down the field, so you have to get the ball off quickly. But in general, to me, some of these college coaches really don't know how to coach the position. They've been to a clinic. It sounds good on paper. It doesn't make sense when you really utilize it into the game. And some of them are doing what they call rugby kicks, where they roll out and they hit topspin, it hits the ground, and they hope it rolls. And basically, you're just rolling the dice and hoping that you can get the roll out of it. But I just wanted to get an Australian's opinion on that in general. But, going back to kind of living in America like you did for 7 years, you would go home occasionally to Australia, but what do you think like major differences, there? I know we learned some differences in verbiage, if you will. I remember the first, we were talking about supporters and versus fans, and the cultural differences there, garages, how you would call a garage, hood of a car, maybe.
What about the one that I got when I was in at the Redskins was aluminium. Everyone wanted me to say aluminium. Well, you guys say aluminum.
What do you call a hood of a car?
The hood, the bonnet.
The bonnet. What's the trunk?
Bonnet. The boot.
That's what I wear on my foot. Your garage is a roller door, right?
Yeah.
And you drink a ton of Foster's beer, correct?
And VB. Yeah. There's a lot of differences.
Yeah.
But one thing that I was able to learn was about mince meat pies. And we spent Thanksgiving together. I believe it was a Thanksgiving, and you had us over to your house and you made mince meat pies. And I was like, this sounds absolutely disgusting. And you're like, no, you don't understand. It's kind of like going to a ballpark and you all eating a bunch of hot dogs. We'll go to the stadiums and we'll eat mince meat pie. It's like, still sounds disgusting. It doesn't sound like. It was delicious. I don't know if you made that or Rose made it, but it was absolutely delicious. And then on top of it, you brought in nothing like Vegemite or anything like that. You brought in an American cuisine, Oreos, but you made the best Oreo balls. So anything that you've picked up from your time in America that you've taken back and said, hey, these are some things we've learned to love over there, or what do you feel like you left to the Americans?
Well, the Oreo balls is a big hit for me. Everyone loves my balls.
Hey,
I bring them to all parties. Oreo balls.
Easy. We don't need to talk about your balls, but you held my balls very well. I don't know.
It's a running joke. Every time I bring them to a party, it's a running joke that I give. I love it. But it's. I'm just about to put on. I've got friends coming over tonight, and I'm about to put on a brisket. So I love my brisket.
Did you learn that in the States?
I ate it in the States, but I actually only just started loving cooking it here. So it's morning here. I'll put it on, and I'll put it in a cast iron pot and let it simmer away for 8-10 hours. So it'll be.
So you're not smoking it?
No, I won't smoke it. I'll put it in a cast iron pot, and I'll put a bottle of wine and some, beef broth and tomatoes and potatoes.
Oh, so you're thinking more of like a rump roast, and you call it a brisket there?
No, it is a brisket, but it is cooked that way, probably like a rump roast. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, I miss my Starbucks though. I used to get a Starbucks every morning, which. On the way to training. We have a Starbucks in the city, but I don't ever drive past it. It's not something where I can call through or, do a drive-through.
So for years, I've made my own lattes every morning. I grind my own bean and I make it. But I believe it's an Australian company. Is Breville an Australian company?
Yeah.
But I'm tired of my machine
breaking on me, okay? I can't really send it over to Australia, but they make a decent machine, and you can froth it yourself, and we could have a little morning latte with Sav,
So
yeah, I do miss the Starbucks coffee. I don't really do coffees at home. I'll go out for coffee, but not really at home.
Is what you want.
Yeah, that's right.
The time away.
Well, Sav, I miss seeing you, brother. You look great. I appreciate your time, and thanks for kicking it with David here. But man, I got to say, I might have to jump on a bird. I got to get there one day to see you.
Yeah, I'd love to have you guys over. And likewise, you know, I've been meaning to get back over there. Excuse me, the COVID things certainly knocked things about, but I want to come see you. You're in Nashville area.
Nashville area, and I always love to have you, brother. We'll get you up on some water sports stuff. We do a lot of skiing around here. We do some wakeboarding, wake surfing, but I think we could get you surfing. I don't know if we could get 270 pounds, whatever you're at
these days.
You got to have a big boat for that.
We can.
I guarantee the boat will get you up. You just may not be on your ski.
Yeah, that's right.
Man, we love you, brother. Thanks so much for being on, and loved hearing your story.
No, thanks for having me on, Dave. It's been a pleasure.